If you are anxiously attached or fearful avoidant and you are dating somebody of the other attachment style and want to make this relationship work, this 7-minute masterclass may completely change the way that you see dating and this relationship and what to do so that you can actually thrive. Because there's a few things that almost certainly are likely to go wrong in this relationship dynamic, especially as they start seeing each other and spending more time together. And if you miss these few things, you really set yourself up to have a much harder time down the line to the point where the relationship may not work. But if instead you learn these 5 crucial lessons right here and now in today's mini masterclass, you are going to be able to turn this, fireworks, really deep connection that you feel at the beginning into something that actually can stay connected and stable and meaningful in the long run, rather than feeling like it kind of is fireworks and then the relationship burns up and burns out, because that's something that frequently happens in this type of scenario. So again, I'm going to take you through 5 crucial lessons that if you get these right in the dating stage will forever change the course of your relationship. And I can't wait to share this with you because I find that so many people don't have access to just understanding our own relationship dynamics and our attachment style, especially not how attachment styles interact together. And I hope that this is really life-changing. I hope that this really gives you a new set of eyes to see this dynamic and really thrive. Now, if you're new here, my name is Gibson, and after more than 13 years or so of working in private practice and through the personal development school, which I founded, where we have a whole bunch of different group coaching programs, I am here today to share with you the most powerful insights for deep inner healing from your own childhood and painful relationship patterns, but also to learn the things we don't get taught in school growing up, which is how to really thrive in our connection and communication and how to really build the best relationships of our life. Let's dive in here. There's 5 major things I really want you to know. The first thing is that when this relationship starts, it's like fireworks. There's so much connection. Both the anxious and the fearful avoidant put so much generosity and care into the relationship dynamic. They both want to deeply see each other and know each other and spend so much time together. In doing that, there's this sense of like, wow, we are so connected so fast. And there's this ability between these two to build a connection that's really deep. They both like to share. They both want to hear and see and understand each other. They're both very generous in the relationship. So we start this relationship, if you could graph it, you would start by quickly moving to this like climatic space where everything's amazing and there's so much intimacy and closeness in this dynamic. But we usually see that as the fearful avoidance starts to feel like things become more serious and there's more of an orientation towards a committed relationship or a future, fearful avoidance from this place start to question things. They start to kind of hold back. They think like, well, if this person's coming on so strong with me, are they like this with everybody? How do I even know that I'm special here in this relationship? And they start to have the seeds of doubt planted, not because of anything the anxious attachment style is doing, but because deep down, they just have that in terms of their own patterning come up quite frequently. And when they start to behave this way, they start to pull back a little bit. And fearful avoidants have this deep inner fear that they can't have a relationship and the relationship to themselves too. They tend to be quite codependent. And so they'll fully immerse themselves in a relationship, but it's at the expense of their own life, like at the expense of their own hobbies or needs or friendships or life goals, work, career goals. And they'll start to feel like, oh my gosh, I'm losing myself in this too. And in that, it actually triggers these fears that come from enmeshment in childhood. They become afraid of being enmeshed again and they start to retreat. And it is from this place of retreating and pulling back, we enter into this cycle. We get into this loop where the fearful avoidant is afraid of being trapped. That is one of the fearful avoidant core wounds, according to integrated attachment theory. Then we have this dynamic where they feel trapped. They pull away to protect themselves from being trapped, which then in turn triggers the anxious attachment style's core wound of abandonment. And now they're like, wait, you're pulling away. Are you leaving me? And some other core wounds from integrated attachment theory are not just abandoned, but unloved, not good enough. And these fears start to creep into the anxious attachment style where they wonder, am I these things? And in turn, they work to deal with this by maintaining proximity, by trying to hold on more tightly. And that in turn causes the fearful avoidant to feel more trapped. And now we have this cycle that's starting to occur. But here's how you break it. I just wanted to jump in here really quick and let you know it is Cyber Monday. And as a result, we have a free giveaway that we're sharing with you. And this is that if you come in and you check out the 7-day all access pass to the personal development school, you will get to keep for life, for free, the Somatic Processing and Nervous System Regulation course. It is all about healing your attachment style through one of our 6 major pillars of healing your attachment style and becoming secure, which is self-soothing, regulating your nervous system, and being able to somatically process your emotions. We talk about everything from polyvagal theory to understanding the difference between sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. There's really powerful practices for self-soothing and self-regulation that are simple and easy to try, and you will literally get to keep this for life. We're just doing it because it's Black Friday, Cyber Monday time. And as a result, we will be closing the doors on this at the end of the promotion. So join now while you can, and I hope you enjoy. You can start by making sure, and nobody likes this in the anxious, fearful, avoidant dynamic when I first say this, but it is wildly important. You can start by making sure the first thing that you're doing is keeping a relationship to yourself. What does that actually mean? It means, well, we have 7 areas of life. We have our career, we have our financial area, which is like our budgeting, our habits, our investments, our goals. We have the mental area, the things we love to learn about, the things that we love to study or research, even our hobbies, if they're intellectual hobbies. Then we have the emotional area of life, our ability to invest in personal growth, learn about ourselves, introspect, regulate emotionally. And then we have spiritual, which can be a relationship to God or any higher power you believe in. If you don't believe in anything, it can be your values, your morals. Then we have our physical area of life, how we eat, how we sleep, how we move our bodies, how we take care of ourselves, what our habits and rituals are. And then relationships. And that includes your family, your friends. It's not just romantic. What often happens in this dynamic is both parties get so invested in each other that they kind of forget about these other areas of life. And usually the fearful avoidant will realize this first and feel a little bit threatened by it first emotionally. They'll start to feel a little bit claustrophobic. They'll be like, oh my gosh, what about these other areas? I'm not getting to the things that matter to me. And they'll start to pull away. And that kicks off that very cycle we were just discussing. So having both people have a life outside of each other is actually so important for not just creating interdependence in a relationship and healthy, foundations in a relationship, but also taking the pressure off of this relationship, because this brings me to point number 2, which is that far too often these individuals rely too much on each other, and like relying on each other is such a beautiful thing. But because both of you are likely to be enmeshed in this scenario, you take each other's problems as if you were so responsible for them. This very cycle can be something that creates resentment long-term. So often what we'll see is when somebody feels so responsible for the other person's problems and vice versa, rather than both people leaning on each other when they go through problems, but also doing that introspective work to take accountability and responsibility and learn, how to navigate and action things out on their own. When both people take on full emotional responsibility for each other, again, we go back to enmeshment. We go back to what we're going to talk about in a moment, covert contracts. And we go back to this cycle of feeling burnt out by one another, instead of like, oh, we're leaning on each other. We want to be here for each other, but we also trust that we can take care of our own stuff. And we get into mothering, we get into fathering, we get into these unhealthy behaviors when we're like, no, I'm going to do it for you, and vice versa. And those are things that if you play them out on the long-term trajectory of a relationship, do not go well. Okay. They create resentment. They create these parenting dynamics in relationships. Whereas leaning on each other is like, hey, I'm going through this. I'm doing this and this about it. What else do you think? Is there anything I'm not seeing? And being able to bounce ideas around, being able to hear each other, vent to each other a little bit. But ultimately, each person still shows up to navigate it themselves. And you can think of like, if you've ever had a friend who constantly complains maybe about their relationship or something they're going through, but they never do anything to better themselves around it, there can be a burnout cycle there. And just fearful avoidance and anxiously attached individuals are especially prone to this because of how enmeshed they are with each other's feelings. Number 3, both of you will operate by what is known as covert contracts, a term originally coined by Melody Beattie. And covert contracts are this idea or concept where you are buying your ability to ask for your needs by overgiving in the present. So it's like, okay, let's pretend you're an anxiously attached individual and you're scared of being a burden and being abandoned, usually the drivers of your personal covert contracts. You might find that you get into a relationship and you're like, okay, I need a ride to the airport next week. And I feel so uncomfortable asking. So I'm going to do like 7 nice things every day this week so that then I feel like I'm owed a ride to the airport and I don't have to feel guilty for asking. And as soon as we get into that space, there are these subtleties of number 1, not feeling comfortable just speaking up and taking up space in a relationship, not feeling comfortable voicing your needs, number 2. And number 3, this guilt about your existence, that then if somebody ever can't be there for you, and let's say they're busy at the time that they have to take you to the airport, you're going to turn around and be like, oh, I am not worthy of being taken care of. And you're going to feel that the guilt and the idea that you're a burden is reinforced, when in reality, like, somebody might just be busy and they still really love you and care about you, right? And so we get into this cycle where covert contracts become recipes for resentment, for misunderstandings, for bitterness in relationships. And those are not things that we want. So being able to openly speak your needs, openly lean on each other and request directly what it is that you need without expecting mind reading, without expecting that you have to do a whole bunch of things first to earn your keep in the relationship. The more there's just an openness and there's an acceptance of where people can and may not be able to do things, the better. The next thing here, number 4, is that we have to be able to, in this relationship, have boundaries. We have to be able to not just have boundaries, but accept each other's boundaries. These are things that are the containers for our own personal identity and sense of self. And I promise you, we don't stay in love in a healthy way with somebody who violates our sense of self and vice versa. Okay. Love lasts when people bring their sense of self, their wholeness, who they truly are, into the relationship and keep it, because that's who you guys fell in love with, right? If you meet somebody and you love all these things about them, their attributes, their interests, but then they get into the relationship with you and they become so obsessed with the relationship and so codependent that they throw themselves away, what's left of the person you fell in love with? That gets stripped away as a byproduct. And so having healthy boundaries and accepting when each other have boundaries, encouraging boundaries, having boundary discussions in relationships is absolutely massive. It is a necessity for this relationship to actually work. I cannot stress this enough. Okay, so learning about boundaries, understanding them, just such a necessity to navigate these in healthy ways. Now, I want to share, before I tell you point number 5, a study with you. So there's a study done by a researcher named Ruth Feldman about oxytocin. And oxytocin, if you weren't familiar, is the bonding neurochemical. But basically in this study, Feldman found that when there were consistent open dialogues about needs, about, even just having morning rituals, things where there's a good morning text or an evening phone call, or having these habituated habits of talking about things like needs and boundaries and check-ins in a relationship. When there were habituated cycles like this, what it actually did was not just increase safety signals in the relationship, but also increased oxytocin. So actually promoted more emotionally available bonding in a relationship in a healthy way. And this is precisely what brings me to number 5, which is that this relationship does best when, instead of becoming the center of each other's universe, when you start dating, you keep your sense of self. You organize yourself in terms of having, needs and boundaries and learning to communicate openly about these things without fearing being a burden or fearing abandonment or rejection. So that vulnerability is key, but then also habituating your time. So rather than being like, oh my gosh, we're on autopilot, not even making an effort to discuss how much you're going to hang out during the week, have a conversation, decide in advance. If you would accidentally fall into the trap of, spending 7 nights a week together and then the fearful one gets burnt out and panics and runs away, have a discussion ahead of time. Hey, let's see each other 3 nights a week and let's keep it at that. And let's have a text in the morning and a quick evening phone call. And then we feel loved and connected and it's habituated and we don't have to wonder or worry. And that actually carves out room for you to each both keep your sense of self across the other 7 areas of life. So these are some introductory tips that help, especially in the early dating stage. I mean, these change throughout different stages of relationships. So in the power struggle stage, these change in the rhythm stage of relationships, something we talk a lot about on this channel. We'll be discussing a lot this month. We'll cover a lot more. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know some of the themes and patterns you've seen for yourself here in the comments down below. And thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this was helpful for you and supportive for you. And if you don't want to miss any future mini masterclasses, please hit that like, share, and subscribe button.